Recently, I had a bit of a craving to replay Sonic games on PC. I decided to try 100%ing all of them for fun, since I already had a handful completed. After CD and Mania, I found myself onto the real first 3D Sonic game, Sonic Adventure. Now, it's worth noting, I love Sonic Adventure. I think it's a great transition in 3D, and has a cool story as well. And it manages 6 different campaigns pretty well too. However, the DX version of this game, specifically the Steam port, the one I'm playing today, is highly regarded as the worst possible way to play this game, as it's very buggy compared to the Dreamcast and even GameCube versions. It has frame rate issues, frequent crashes, and despite releasing in 2011, it doesn't support widescreen. And I took it upon myself to go back and 100% complete this game. Just everything. Absolutely clear this game for once. Get all the Steam achievements, get all other things I may need, and I know there's mods that can actually improve this experience. There's probably widescreen mods, there's mods that make it like the Dreamcast version, but I'm not going to be using any of that. I want a true vanilla 100% experience on this game, and that's what I'm going to be doing today. But hey, enough complaining, enough excuses. This is not a review of Sonic Adventure DX, but rather a video documenting my journey to 100% completion. Let's get right into it. The 100% journey in Sonic Adventure DX consists of 3 steps. Step 1, beating the story, which consists of playing through all 6 characters' campaigns and getting every character's upgrade, and we're going to be saving Super Sonic's story for the end of Step 2. Which consists of getting all 130 emblems, which means beating every one stage B and A missions, completing all subgames, getting all Adventure Field emblems, completing all Chow Garden races, and finishing off with Super Sonic. And then there's Step 3, which is the final cleanup. More on that later, though. Our journey starts with the main story campaigns in order, which shouldn't be hard since I've beat this game like 5 times. Sonic's campaign is the longest, but in my opinion, it's also the best, and by a long shot. His stages are built around speedrunning and shortcuts that utilize the game's momentum and physics very well. There's some shortcuts in his stages you probably never even thought to take when they were right in front of you. There's nothing too hard about his story, other than maybe the first playthrough of Lost World or Skydeck, which is a nightmare to control through. But other than that, everything including the boss fights is pretty manageable. Tails' campaign is by far the easiest, like stupid easy too. He's got maybe 5 stages, and they're all these very easy races, which you can practically fly past half the stage on. Knuckles' campaign is also relatively easy. It consists of these smaller scale stage areas where you have to find like 3 emeralds all being tracked at the same time. It's a little bit of fun and doesn't take too long. Now, Amy's campaign kinda sucks. Her stages are most similar to Sonic's, except you got this annoying fat-ass robot chasing you the entire time, who, by the way, might as well be a less redeemable villain than Sephiroth. And she just controls super poorly. She's super slow, and her jumps break all her momentum. She does have this hammer jump, which picks up a lot of speed, and I found myself using that 90% of the time, but overall her campaign's just kind of whatever. Pretty easy and pretty short. Big's campaign is absolutely nothing special, but it's also nothing horrible. Once you know how to fish with him, it's actually dummy easy. Probably the easiest and shortest campaign in the whole game. And last but not least, there's Gamma. One of the more fun campaigns in my opinion. I like the gimmick of shooting enemies to give you more time to beat the stage. Not bad at all. I enjoy the stages themselves, and he has the best story out of all the campaigns, so massive props to that. Now, with all 6 campaigns done, all we have to do is go back and get all the characters' upgrades, which technically isn't necessary for all the Steam achievements, but it is for 100% completion, and you need all Big's upgrades for his later emblems, which we will get to, trust me. It is worth noting that Tails has an upgrade that is actually missable, so you have to do it while you're playing through the story, and that would be the Rhythm Badge. It's only found at Tikal's Village, which you cannot go back to pick up once you beat the game, meaning it is possible to actually permanently soft-lock yourself from truly completing this game, which admittedly was actually a pretty big fear of mine until I found it almost instantly. It's in plain sight. Now, with Step 1 finally out of the way, we get to tackle the biggest part of 100%ing Sonic Adventure DX, and that is getting all 130 emblems. To start off, I went ahead and went through all the Stage B and A emblems, and trust me, this was probably the most meaty part of the game. Sonic's level B missions consist of getting 50 rings and reaching the exit, which is very easy except for on stages like Lost World or Skydeck, which give you a lot of opportunities to lose all your rings right before the exit. But otherwise, it's more of a time sink than a challenge. His level A missions, however, require you to get to the goal in a specific time. Now, this is challenging, but nowhere near as hard as you think. some of these time limits are very strict. Like, I did not think Lost World and Red Mountain were at all possible for the longest time, until I found out this game has a lot of shortcuts that are practically hidden in plain sight and let you skip most of the stage. Like, Red Mountain has this very, very strict time limit, but that's actually because it has a lot of shortcuts that let you skip like 30 seconds of the stage. There's just one in the beginning. I mean, look at this. That's 20 seconds gone. And did you know in Lost World, you don't even have to solve the puzzle while riding the snake at all. You can just do it on foot, and that saves you a good 1 or 2 minutes. Or at the end of the stage, you just spin dash jump to skip the wall platform segment entirely, saving you like 2 minutes. Sonic stages are littered with shortcuts, and even glitches that let you skip the whole stage, which I didn't have to resort to at all, thankfully. Not even Casino Night, which was actually pretty easy. There were some stages that made me absolutely pull my hair out. Like, Red Mountain was one of them, but then there was also Twinkle Park, which I genuinely thought was impossible until I found out you can literally hop off the roller coaster before it takes you to the bowling segment, and it saves you like 2 minutes of your time. Overall, I'd say Sonic Stage A missions definitely are challenging. They're very challenging, especially if this is your first playthrough of the game. And even for me, someone who's beaten the game many times and is familiar with these stages, without knowing about these certain shortcuts, I genuinely thought these would be impossible. But with enough observation and guidance, these Stage A missions are not the worst. They become muscle memory. It's a fair challenge and a lot of fun. Oh yeah, and if you die mid-speedrun, you can actually restart from the last checkpoint and save the time you had when you hit that checkpoint. So you don't even have to perform like a perfect run, which makes you so much less stressful and easier to get done. Now on to Tails, who I don't have much to say for. His level B missions are just collect 50 rings, which is easy because you'll never get hit. And his level A missions are racing a faster version of Sonic and Eggman. I mean, they're definitely faster, but not at all by much. If you can beat his campaign without a problem, you're already set to clear this. These aren't hard at all. Now for Knuckles. His Stage B missions are actually very easy. Just get all the emeralds without getting hints from the Tikal orbs. I've actually failed a couple of these because I'd accidentally make contact with an orb, but the emerald tracker is good enough to where you don't need hints at all, so these are very easy to do. But his Stage A missions, however, are absolutely impossible in concept. You have to beat most of these stages in under a minute, and emerald spawns are RNG based, so this is entirely luck based, right? And you only have a minute. These are almost impossible to do. However, if you just simply track down the emerald locations without picking them up and plan a route to get them all, and then restart the stage, they will all be in the same spot, so all you have to do is follow that route in under a minute, and you're pretty much set. So the Knuckles A-rank stages are actually extremely easy, only because of this method. Now on to Amy. Amy's Stage B missions are not worth going over. Just get 50 rings, you know the drill. Hot Shelter kinda sucks for this since it's the longest stage, averaging 6 to 7 minutes, so losing all your rings before the end would suck. But that's never happened to me. Her Stage A missions, however, are actually pretty easy, except for Twinkle Park, which pretty much requires you to perform a perfect run, as there's a pretty strict time limit and barely any checkpoints. But after enough replays, it's not that hard to get through. Hot Shelter may be the longest stage, but because its time limit is so forgivable, this is actually probably the easiest one to do. And Final Egg is also just a very short level. It does have this stupid RNG door guessing game at the end, where only 1 out of the 6 doors will lead you to the exit, but if you restart at the checkpoint, you can bypass this pretty easily. However, I'm gonna be honest, this stage absolutely sucked for me because the game kept crashing during the stage, and mind you, I have a very powerful computer, so this should not be happening. This is just a problem with Sonic Adventure DX on Steam. But then I was lucky to figure out that lowering my graphics was actually the solution to this issue. However, I mean, I did get a few crashes after that, but that kind of sucked, you know, that's just Sonic Adventure DX being a shit port. Overall, Amy's Stage A and B missions are kind of in between. They're less challenging than Sonic's, but definitely a lot more challenging than something easy like Tails or Knuckles. Now on to Big. You know, ever since I was a kid, ever since the first time I played Sonic Adventure, I never understood why people hated Big. He's a funny character, he has no bad traits, his levels are piss easy if you know what you're doing, but then I got to his Stage A missions. Now, let me just start with his Stage B missions. His Stage B missions consist of catching a 1,000 gram fish, then Froggy, which is honestly easy. If you can beat the campaign, you can beat these. But his Stage A missions made me see the character and his campaign in an entirely different light. You have to catch a 2,000 gram fish, which doesn't seem that bad until you actually try it. This is an absolute RNG based time sink. Now, to start off, I didn't really have trouble on Twinkle Park, Big's first stage for some reason, though I did find that the 2,000 gram fish in that stage actually had a very rare spawn rate, which was super dumb because it meant I had to restart the stage or constantly die. So that was stupid, but it was doable. With enough time and persistence, it was doable, and it wasn't even that frustrating. But Ice Cap. Oh god, Ice Cap. I have over an hour of footage of me trying to catch the fish here. Every time you hook these guys, they drag your rod to the bottom of the sea. What makes it worse is that the whole time you just have to edge the rod perfectly. If you reel and edge the fish too much, it'll let go of the hook and you die. But if you don't edge it enough, then you pretty much make no progress and you're wasting your time. The edging system is actually very strict as well, making this very annoying. It's an absolute RNG-based power struggle to catch these damn things. But alas, with enough persistence, victory prevails. The same goes for his other stages, which you can already guess took me about 30 minutes to complete. That's 30 minutes too much time. Though I have to add that big stage B mission in his final level, Hot Shelter, actually has no 1,000 gram fishes. So I had to catch a 2,000 gram fish in that stage twice, and it was annoying. In conclusion, I hate these stages. I wish Sega never made Bass Pro Fishing. This is a horrible fishing tech demo, and Big the Cat does suck. Now, to finish off the stage B and A missions on a much lighter tone, we got Gamma, who I'd say is relative in difficulty to Amy, if not a little higher. Overall, I actually had no real, raging moments doing these stages, a huge contrast to Big, because I honestly found these a lot of fun. His Stage B missions are just getting 50 rings, which is easy since ring boxes are super common, and these stages feel like 20 seconds long. And his Rank A missions are actually pretty fun. You have to beat the stage in under a certain increased time limit, so you really do have to perform your enemy combo chains perfectly to get enough bonus time. I didn't have too much trouble with this since I like these stages, and it's worth noting that Windy Hill is piss easy since you got these enemies that give you a whole 60 seconds of bonus time. Overall, I'd say Gamma had probably one of the better ranked missions, as they were pretty fun and challenging and very short. And with that, I ended it off with all the main character missions with an emblem count of 100. Now for the sub-games. To start off, I did the Sky Chase missions, which required you to pass a certain score for each one. And I will say, if you are playing this on Steam, make sure you lower your graphics, as if you have high graphics on, the enemies won't spawn as much, making Sky Chase Act 2 specifically absolutely impossible. Thankfully, I already did that with the Amy stage that always crashed, but overall, I'd say these were actually pretty easy, but not until I found out the trick. I started off treating these like the Gamma missions, where the more enemies you lock onto, the more time or score you get, because I thought you'd get bonus points for combo chains, but you don't. So, in conclusion, just spam the ever-living shit out of the shoot button, and the bonus emblem is as good as yours. Now, next up was this stupid Sand Hill snowboarding mission, which I didn't like the music of, and the mission itself was actually a pain in the ass. To get the bonus emblem on this, you pretty much have to get a gate combo with 30 or something, which maybe took me 10 minutes to finally master, but it still sucked, honestly. And after that was a Twinkle Park go-kart racing, which required you to beat the stage and then beat your high score. So, in conclusion, I did really bad for the first emblem and beat my really bad high score for the second. It's piss easy and kind of fun, honestly. And last but not least is the Amy Whack-A-Mole minigame. I actually already did the first emblem to get Amy's hammer upgrade, but for the second, you have to beat your high score, and I'm not gonna lie, this one scared me. I got a really good high score on my first attempt, so beating that was actually pretty tricky, and this is completely RNG based. But with enough tries, I was able to do it, and all the sub-game emblems were as good as mine. Now for the Adventure Field emblems. I'm not gonna lie, this was nothing to write home about. During my story playthrough, I got a couple of Knuckles by accident, but for the rest of these, I just did a quick cleanup by using a guide and some of my memory from past experiences playing this game years ago. But after 15 minutes, I was able to get all 12 Adventure Field emblems. And now, onto the part I was actually most scared to start, the Chow Garden. Not gonna lie, I never cared about the Chow Garden despite playing a lot of Sonic Adventure 2 as a kid. But now I'm forced to play it. And thankfully, this Chow Garden is actually very straightforward compared to its sequels. But even so, adapting this mode was definitely an experience. I started by getting this golden egg in some random shop, and I waited for the gold Chow to hatch. Now initially, raising this little shit was a total pain. He would always fall asleep, he would walk away from me, and I'd have to grind levels out to get animals to raise his stats. But then then I remembered this popular method online about unlimited animal reuses, and for some reason I couldn't get it to work as any character but Tails. But after this, over the course of 2 hours, I'd get the animals I'd need in Sonic stages, and then give my Chow the stats those animals had. And since my stats were just so good, I beat their beginner races super easily. But when I got onto the pro races, this little shit fell asleep. Now, don't worry, I made sure to throw this little disappointment through a few walls to straighten him out. But after that, beating all expert races for the last 5 emblems was actually pretty easy. Now I was at 129 emblems, and all I had to do was finish it all off by beating Perfect Chaos as Super Sonic. And with that, Emblem 130 was mine, and I unlocked Metal Sonic. And now we are into Step 3, the final cleanup. Now, I'm going to be honest with you guys, I like to consider the Chow Garden the calm before the storm, because this next part, Step 3, the final cleanup, is honestly just the most insufferable part of 100%ing Sonic Adventure DX. Everything before now was challenging, enjoyable. I never felt like this game was getting repetitive, even if I was replaying stages, because it just felt fun, you know? Even the Chow Garden was an experience, and I'm pretty proud of it. But the final cleanup has to be the worst. For the final cleanup, all we have to do is unlock Metal Sonic, which we already did, beat all his level C, B, and A missions, and then complete all 60 missions, which, trust me, we will get to. Metal Sonic felt like such a treat. I've always wanted to unlock this guy in Adventure, but I never had the patience to get all 130 emblems back then. He really is just a reskin of Sonic, and the same goes for all the missions, but it's still kind of a nice little treat, you know what I mean? I don't know, it just felt good unlocking him, playing as him. The only thing I will say is that beating each of Metal Sonic's, or I guess really just Sonic stages, 3 times each was absolutely draining to do, at least in one sitting. I really didn't find it hard to do since I literally already did all these, as the rank C, B, and A missions are the same as Sonic, same time limit, nothing harder, nothing easier. But I just had to do them all over again. And it was definitely repetitive, and I was glad to be done it after 2 hours of gameplay, playing each of Sonic's stages 3 times each, in one sitting. I mean, this is just draining. One thing I will say, though, is that I actually ran into more bugs playing as Metal Sonic than I did as Sonic. I know this might have just been, like, chance-based. I don't think the stages or characters are any different, but I did run into more bugs, which I found kind of annoying and weird. But with that all said and done, with all Metal Sonic's Rank A missions complete, that just leaves us with the worst part of this entire game, the mission mode. I have a lot I want to say about this mode. I know it was just a bunch of fluff introduced to the GameCube port to pad out the game, make the changes in DX stand out more as if it already didn't, and promote Sonic X for some reason. And yeah, don't worry, the Steam, Xbox, and PS3 versions of DX still have the Sonic X promos, which I find very strange because that show ended like 6 years before this game was ported. And they even went out of their way to add promotions for Sonic 06, Sonic 4 Episode 1, and even Sonic Unleashed without its logo, so it just looks low-res and weird. And trust me, it goes even deeper than that. I went back to the GameCube version to see what they promoted back then, and instead of 06, 4, and Unleashed, they promoted Sonic Mega Collection, Sonic Advance 2, and Sonic Spinball Party. What the hell? Whatever, I'm getting sidetracked. Mission mode is definitely the worst and most dull part of this entire game. It consists of these business cards hidden around each character's hub world, and tied to it is some stupid brainless mission that makes you do some stupid task. Mission mode is honestly just a big chore. It's just a big, boring scavenger hunt, and I didn't find any of these missions as fun as the stages themselves, or fun at all, honestly. They're just very vague, and at some points, downright broken objectives. This is where my patience with the 100% completion experience came crashing down. My motivation to actually play this game was at an all-time low. Most of these missions are not worth going over, but I want to go over some of the missions I thought were cool or annoying. There's this one mission where you take a statue across Skydeck, which I thought was pretty cool. Anyways, on to the annoying ones. There's this one mission where you have to find a secret ring trail in Lost World and light speed dash through them to get to a balloon hidden in the air. It's during the snake puzzle segment, and all I have to say is that I wasted more time on this than I'd like to admit. For some reason, despite light dashing perfectly, I could not get to the balloon. I even slipped off the snake once, which was super annoying. I finally figured out all you have to do is light speed dash and then not touch the controller at all. Not hard, just very very annoying and kind of confusing. There's this one mission as Knuckles where you have to get through a ring of springs perfectly to get a coin. It was kind of annoying, but thankfully not that hard. I could definitely see this being way more annoying though. Now on to the 4 missions that could have broke me. You remember Big the Cat level A stages, right? What if I told you that you had to do one of them all over again? This alone is the 4th most annoying mission, as, like I said before, these 2,000 gram fish segments boil down to edging the rod tied with unfair RNG bullshit. But alas, 20 minutes later, the dumb fish was mine and I never had to play another stupid fishing game tech demo stage again. Now for the 3rd most annoying mission, Mission 58. This requires you to collect 36 flags while you have a boulder chasing you. This sounds like nothing, right? This shouldn't be that hard. The only issue is that the camera angle's facing, like, in front of you, so you don't even see the flags that are coming, and you have no chance to go back to them because the boulder's chasing you. This, combined with the game's already slippery controls, and the fact that DX is far more glitchy and buggy than the original, make this downright impossible to do on your first try. I had to get a guide up to remember the flag placement so I could nail this down. It probably took me like 8 tries, not necessarily hard, but definitely a tedious and frustrating rinse and repeat process. Now for the 2 missions that honestly are the hardest part of this entire game. If I had to be honest, looking back, I could probably do everything I mentioned. All those Stage A and B missions, all the Chow Garden missions, all the other mission mode missions. I could do it all in a speedrun for all I care, you know, because that's a fair, fun challenge, right? But these 2 missions make the 100% completion process as a whole break in half. Mission 54 and Mission 53. Mission 54 is horrible. It requires you to reach the end part of Ice Cap as Tails and collect 13 flags. Doesn't sound that bad until you realize it's at the end of the stage. If you miss one due to the awful snowboarding controls or just their stupid placement, then you have to restart the whole level. This one maybe took me like an hour to do, and let me tell you, it was definitely a hurdle. And you want to know the worst part? This isn't the only mission in the game that requires you to get to the end of Ice Cap and do some stupid shit that you can't backtrack without restarting the whole stage. Now, Mission 53 actually has it far worse. I kid you not, I spent close to 3 hours trying to do this mission. It requires you to get to the end of Ice Cap and reach this ramp, where you have to input a frame-perfect jump to reach a super secret hidden row of rings all the way in the air. The issue is that when I say frame-perfect, I'm not exaggerating, I mean frame-perfect. And restarting this is an absolute slog. The only checkpoint is at the start of the snowboard segment, which means it'll take you over 2 minutes for each retry. And trust me, you're gonna need a lot. I recommend getting a ton of lives for this, because each retry costs you a life, meaning you gotta do the entire beginning segment again if you run out. What the game also doesn't tell you is that the only way to perform this frame-perfect jump is to perform a crouch using the action button, which was never brought up in the game at all, by the way, and you gotta hold the analog stick forward the whole time, and you gotta hold all 3 of these inputs down once you perform them, and pray you did them on the right frame. It took a while. I have enough footage of retries to make this a whole ass movie, which is what I'm doing. You can check out the new blockbuster 19-year-old fails Mission 53 over and over again, releasing on YouTube right now as we speak. Anyways, after about 3 hours of attempts, I finally got this done and I was screaming. Like, no other part of this entire game had me this excited, man. You have no idea. I was absolutely done with this horrific excuse of a mission. And after that, I cleaned up the rest of the missions, which weren't too bad, and that was it. I was done. Story mode complete, all upgrades unlocked, all emblems obtained, all Metal Sonic missions taken care of, the Chow Garden pretty much mastered, and finally, all the missions done. Meaning I now have all Steam achievements and a absolute true 100% save file of Sonic Adventure DX under a completion time of 17 hours and 41 minutes. Not as bad as I thought, honestly. I gotta say, going into this, I really thought it would be a lot harder, as this is an adventure game. This is a Sonic adventure game, a buggy one at that, but I was led to believe otherwise, as I was surprised to find understand how forgiving this game really is compared to the other Sonic games when it comes to getting all the emblems. The Chow Garden is also far more simple than I considered it to be. Metal Sonic as a reward for all 130 emblems isn't much, but dear god, it's better than nothing, and I do not feel the need to discredit it, especially when all 60 of those dreadful mission mode missions awarded me with absolutely nothing but a Steam achievement. That's absolutely disgraceful, man. I was surprised to find that other than the awful mission mode, getting 130 emblems never felt like a tedious or repetitive task. Even the Chow Garden was kind of fun, actually. And the objectives for stage A and B missions added enough of a spin on the levels to make the experience so fresh. I wouldn't say there was any part of this game where I felt like I was going to break my controller or anything, other than mission 53 and 54, which honestly, without the mission mode and the 2,000 gram fish missions, this would have been one of the most fun 100% experiences, even if this is a buggy, crashy, and dogshit port of an otherwise clean but kind of aged game. I know there's mods that improve this sorry excuse and port, and trust me, I will be testing them out now that I'm finally done with this, but I needed to 100% this game without any mods or changes to get that true Sonic Adventure DX 100% experience. And was it worth it? Absolutely not!